The second part of our discussion with D. Raghunandan on climate change and US-China agreement on this issue. Is this not really a pledge and review driven mechanism, which is what US has always proposed, as opposed to what the world needs and the world needs to do, particularly the large emitters and those who have done historical emissions need to do? Isn't this a reversal of that, and we are getting back to a kind of each one decides what it wants to do, irrespective of what happens to the climate?
To me, the other somewhat disquieting feature of this agreement is that it seems to endorse the long-held US position of moving towards a pledge and review based system for the architecture of the global climate agreement in Paris. The US has long resisted a top-down system, and it prefers a bottom-up pledge and review system. The question is there going to be now or in Paris a mechanism by which these pledges will be weighed against the 2 degrees Celsius goal and to address what in the negotiations parlance is known as adequacy? Are these going to be adequate to meet the 2 degree centigrade goal? And if not, will the climate summit in Paris afford an opportunity to bring the countries back to the negotiating table to make an upward revision till the 2 degrees Celsius goal is reached? That is to say, whether there is going to be a combination of a top-down science-based target and a bottom-up pledge and review system. Right now we are getting only pledges. Where is the review? So if this joint China-US statement is going to be a harbinger of a widespread movement to the pledge and review system, and that both countries will support pledge and review at Paris, then that's going to be a rather disturbing trend.
Now, Raghu, one part of it is what science demands, which is what you said is a top-down requirement, which finally the globe has to follow. Yeah. Other is the allocation of these targets based on different countries' historical emissions as well as the flows. So taking both into account, how do you create what I would call an equity principle? Now, how do we bring equity principle into the climate change negotiations, particularly if it is going to be pledge and review as a mechanism?
Quite. Unfortunately, the pledge and review mechanism does not take into account either equity or the science-based requirement. There is therefore a need to bring back into the discourse the equity principle. And I still have not come across a better way of working with the equity principle than the one which, as you know, the Delhi Science Forum and our partners in TIS have been working on, which is an allocation of fair shares distributed among countries, taking into account the historical stocks of carbon in the atmosphere based on a carbon budgets approach, and allocating the remaining carbon budgets among the countries based on a per capita entitlement to this. Now, even if that is not used as a formula to determine what each country would do, if that is used at least as a method by which adequacy can be measured in terms of the science and adequacy can be measured in terms of the equity principle, then I think it gives a way by which one can work with both a self-stated goal or a target, which is what the pledge and review system is, provided the sum of all the pledges then works out to be what the science demands. It's going to be
equity.
And the equity, that's right. So if the equity and the science can combine together to do this, although the pledges may not entirely be following the equity principle, but then somebody must pick up the slack.
We'll follow up with the third part after this.